Everything had fallen apart. No, not in the house of the Oblonskys, as Tolstoy once wrote. Greg had simply realized with a sudden, crushing clarity that he no longer had a reason to live. Life had slipped into meaninglessness. He was an ordinary young man, moderately witty, moderately intelligent, moderately charming, never enough of anything to stand out. His looks were equally average, a little taller than most, gray eyes that might have been handsome were it not for the look of bewilderment. No, of lostness that lingered in them more and more often, unsettling strangers. A head of curly brown hair framed his lean face with a careless style, the kind he had once thought attractive. He dressed without flash but with taste. There had been a time when he thought his job was interesting. There was a girlfriend, if not a great love, then at least a habit. Friends, colleagues, evenings filled with chatter. A life like everyone else's, until the thought came crashing in. Time was running out, trickling like sand through his fingers, unstoppable, irretrievable, and he was letting it all pass him by. Nothing achieved, nothing truly lived, nothing given, nothing received. And perhaps worst of all, no one wanted what he had to give. His girlfriend stayed because it was comfortable. His boss wouldn't notice if he vanished. Friends were little more than drinking companions. Gray days, gray life. So people began to notice his silence, the extinguished gaze, the absent smile. And people hate that sort of thing. It spoils their mood, makes them uneasy. It was in this state of mind that Greg, one evening, slipped into a small, unremarkable bar he'd never seen before. It was modest and warm, a short counter, a handful of wooden tables and chairs, shelves of books along the whitewashed walls. The light was soft, cast from odd-shaped frosted lamps. In one corner leaned a guitar, a drum kit, a microphone, signs of live music on certain nights. It was clearly a student's place, casual, unpretentious. Greg sat in a quiet corner beneath the bookshelves. He ordered black coffee, unsweetened, bitter like his mood. There were few customers, no one disturbed his thoughts. And his thoughts were dark indeed. If I'm useless, if I matter to no one, if even I don't want myself, then what's the point of staying alive? The thought terrified him. Mind if I sit here? The voice cut through his fog, bright and cheerful. Greg looked up. A short young man stood there, ordinary in appearance, jeans and a loose shirt, smiling as if the world belonged to him. Greg gave a reluctant nod. Inwardly, he scoffed. What's he grinning about? He's a hunchback. What happiness could he possibly have? The stranger sat down with obvious pleasure. They make wonderful Ceylon tea here, he said, beaming. Loose leaf, no additives, no chemicals, just pure tea. I love it, and I love this place. Always cozy, always lifts my spirits. Greg listened with a scowl, yet he found himself suddenly craving tea. He ordered it. It was superb. Deep red, fragrant, faintly tart with a trace of bitterness. And with each sip, his mood began to thaw. Do you come here often? Greg asked. Quite often, the young man replied. I like to sit, think, watch the world. Greg studied him in disbelief. How could this man, deformed, limited in ways ordinary people never had to consider, sit there so content, so full of life? How does he manage it? I have everything, and I can't even feel alive. The young man smiled again. My name's Michael. Friends call me Mick. Seems wrong, sharing a table without names. I'm Greg, he said, surprising himself by giving his old college nickname. Meek nodded warmly. On Fridays, they bring in bands here. Young guys, good sound. Jazz, blues, even a little folk rock. Gets lively. Greg listened, strangely at ease. He felt as though he had known Mick forever. And before he could stop himself, he confessed everything. His despair, his sense of waste, his fear that life was slipping away. Mick didn't interrupt. He listened with the kind of focus that made words easier to speak. Greg ended, to his own embarrassment, with, "So how do you cope?" Mick only laughed. "There's nothing to cope with. I live. I enjoy what I can see, hear, feel. I can walk, even run. I can travel, meet people, do good work in the job I love. That's plenty." "What kind of work?" Greg asked. "Freelance coding," Mick replied. "I'm still learning. There's always something new. And I write too. I'm working on a novel. People's souls fascinate me. Their motives, their choices. It's addictive, trying to capture that in words." Greg listened, spellbound, and with every word the weight on his heart lifted. He realized suddenly, with certainty, that nothing irreversible had happened. Nothing ever would. He noticed Mick occasionally rolling his shoulders, as if shaking off the invisible weight of his crooked back. The gesture was unconscious, habitual. Greg felt a pang of pity. The tea was finished. The conversation had run its course, but they had become friends. "I've got to run," Mick said. "Another meeting tonight." "Take care. Maybe we'll meet again," Greg answered. "Count on it," Mick promised. Greg left the bar with his head high, a wild joy rushing through him. He wanted to sing, to act, to live. How foolish his dark thoughts seemed now. So lost in his newfound optimism was he, that he never looked back. Mick turned the corner, shrugged his shoulders one last time, and behind him unfolded great white wings.